Hey, Professor. I think the video is working. So this is going to be my submission for the final triad. I will be the coach. Wes will be the manager of Jeff in scenario three. Um, we hope you enjoy what you see. We enjoyed the class. We learned a lot, and hopefully I can execute some of the things that we learned, or you'll at least appreciate my floundering as I attempt to do so. So with that, I think we're ready to get started. Okay. Wes, how are you doing?
Good. Busy.
Yeah,
This is another meeting that I have to take time out of my day to do, so I'm really hoping this is worth it.
yeah, and I want to thank you for coming in and speak with me because it's I think going to help the organization as a whole, help the organization understand what's going on. It's mostly about we want to discuss Jeff, an employee of yours. But before we jump all into that again, just want to say thank you for meeting with me, and hopefully it won't take too much of your time. So as I mentioned, we're here to discuss Jeff. You and I are here to discuss Jeff. But before we jump into that, I want to explain to you kind of who I am, because I know we've only seen each other in the hallways a few times. My name's Lee Feldman, and I work here at the company. I've been in HR for 5 years, and I've been with the company for 3, but they've moved me to sort of a new HR-specific division. And I have experience kind of in everything in HR. I'm also ICF certified, which is sort of a coaching certification. So I've handled a lot of issues. I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the business issues just generally in our industry, as well with our company specifically. So that's kind of my background. And before we jump into the situation, I know this sort of just got plopped in your calendar, and I, again, appreciate you coming in. Are there any questions that you have before we sort of jump into trying to deal with the issues here?
Yeah, so we're talking about Jeff, and I can't believe this is what we're having the meeting about. He's my best employee, and of course everybody has complaints about him, it seems, but I guess I was here like, well, Jeff's doing this, Jeff's doing that. Like, can we actually kind of go into a little bit of what's going on with him?
Absolutely. And then the first step of this conversation is going to be an explanation of how the organization's seeing it, what the organization sees in terms of end products from Jeff, the circumstances surrounding it. Absolutely, because it's understood that you might have information that is not readily available or apparent. And actually, that's another part of this is the organization, while having full control of the circumstances, understands that the best person to create a plan to fix this is you, because you're in the position of power to be able to have the information and then act on it. So the organization views you as a very integral person in this development, and explain what exactly is going on. That's the first step we're going to do. But before we jump into that, do you have any other questions?
I guess really I guess let's just jump into it. We'll talk about Jeff, I guess. Got to take an additional 30 minutes out of my day to do this.
And like I said, I appreciate that, and I think this will actually spare a lot of future, give you a lot more time to do other things. So hopefully the solution you come up with will preempt any other issues with Jeff or any other issues, or might give you a blueprint to handle future issues with Jeff or another employee.
Gotcha. I certainly hope so, because time's the one thing I really don't have.
We all could use a little bit more time in the day. I understand that sentiment. So let's see if we can just jump right into it. Does that sound okay?
Let's jump in.
And I just want to tell you, everything we say is really confidential. This is about solving a problem with your employee. But if anything gets out of hand in terms of, I don't expect this from you, Wes. You seem like a very nice guy. Anything gets out of hand in terms of like wishing violence on someone or anything like that, it's obviously we'll act on that. But I don't expect that to be a problem. Just want to let you know. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. The issue that we have is the reason why we're having this conversation is about Jeff, your employee. And the issue is Jeff's behavior. So as you and I both know, Jeff is an incredible employee in terms of production.
Yeah, he's literally the best manager that we have.
In terms of his end results.
Yeah, which is the bottom line and what matters.
Bottom line is important. I understand you saying that, and I agree to a certain extent. The concern that the company has is Jeff is becoming too extreme. Aside from achieving the goals that the organization has set out, he's impacting the other employees, and by that, he's been reported as abusive, verbally abusive to his employees in regards to not understanding what he's trying to say or not executing his plan. Along with being abusive, he's been reported as unreasonable, which is shifting deadlines at the last minute, demanding that they work longer than their allotted time periods, having them work weekends and things like that. And I see you having a reaction to that, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But the other things of the organization, well, actually, before we continue, Wes, I see you kind of react to what I'm saying. You just sort of lean back and you took a deep breath.
Yeah.
You crossed your arms. What's going on?
Yeah, these don't seem to be attacks on just performance, which is what I care about. Okay, I don't, get paid what I get paid and drive a Mercedes Benz because of how people feel. I get paid for the bottom line, and we're talking about just verbally abusive, and employees are afraid of him. He makes them work all day and all night. Well, yeah, they have to. The competition that we have out there is killing us. Would you rather have these guys work overtime or not work at all? I mean, Jeff might have some what we call unconventional methods, but they work. They're getting the bottom result, and that's what I care about.
And I understand your point of view in that regard. The company, I'm sure, appreciates you being concerned about the bottom line for them, for it, and appreciating sort of the market circumstances and impacting the business. How do you see the situation with Jeff? Is everything that was reported correct, that he's abusive, unreasonable, he can be unpredictable in changing his deadlines, he can be unclear? Supposedly that sort of compounds the issue with his abusiveness is the employees are doing their best to try and meet what he wants, but it's incredibly sketchy as to what he wants. Is that similar to circumstance? What do you see the circumstance to be?
I can concede on some of that. He's a little bit unclear, and yeah, he's shifted some deadlines at the last minute, which, that does affect me too, because I gotta listen to all the employees come mumbling and grumbling into my office, breaking the chain of command when I don't have time to deal with all the cogs in the wheel. But would I say he's abusive? No, he's a traditional classic businessman, and I just think people are just way too sensitive these days. They're going and reporting every situation to HR, it feels like. Sometimes you got to learn to not take things personal. And like with Jeff, there's a lot of things that you just got to learn to not take personal, because that's just who he is. He's a go-getter.
Okay. And I think the word abusive seems to be one that you don't agree with. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I think abusive is a pretty strong term.
What does abusive mean? When you say the word abusive, what does that mean to you?
To me, that sounds like, he's cussing people out and personally attacking them and insulting them, and it's bordering on physical abuse with intimidation. And while I certainly think that he's confrontational, I think he's intense, but he's getting results, and people aren't getting hurt, they're getting stressed, but this is a stressful business that we're in. So and stress is part of it. We make that really clear when you go through the interview. And yeah, Jeff he could tone it down a little bit, maybe not. It really kind of depends on the day-to-day, but what Jeff's doing is getting results, so I can't complain about that.
Okay. And while the word abusive might be the one that you're not comfortable with, you would agree that he's confrontational, he gets in people's face in regards to what he wants, and that's impacted the employees in a way that they're now in your daily life.
Yeah.
When you're trying to do other things, you now have to deal with Jeff's employees who feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I got a level with you. They're some of the most irritating people I work with. They're always constantly complaining about Jeff. So I guess, yeah, he might be a bit confrontational, but he's a go-getter.
Okay. So outside of, we established that Jeff is causing people to come to you, because before that, yeah. Jeff, what did the employees come and talk to you before Jeff was put into his position?
No, very, very rarely do they come in, at least never to report anything bad. Sometimes they were to report good things. I like hearing good things, but
absolutely.
I never really had them come in before, but at the same time, we weren't getting the results that we're getting with Jeff. you know?
I understand that. So Jeff's presence has increased the number of people coming to talk to you. That's what it
Yes.
sounds like. He's also, as you admitted, sort of changed deadlines as well.
Yeah, and I will admit that's something that I've been trying to work with him on because I'm a very firm person on my deadlines. I like my routines, and I don't really change these deadlines on him, which that would be one thing. He's changing them to make sure we get things done quicker, and in a lot of cases, we do get things done quicker. Mind you, I get these emails at like 10:15 p.m. every night, but I get them in,
Right.
and it's not always like the best work, but we have interns that proofread it. So we're making it happen, and they don't have to work overtime because they're interns.
Right. I appreciate that perspective. But what I'm trying to illustrate to you, you're someone who's obviously passionate about your job, and the organization appreciates your passion and appreciates your
I've
expertise.
given my soul to this company.
The things we don't want that soul to go to waste, so to speak. So the employees who are upset are talking to you. That's an impact. Your schedule is being messed up because of Jeff's deadline changing. Outside of your knowledge, and I'm going to tell you this, the organization has recognized that people are leaving at a higher rate from Jeff's management group than from any other group. Also, we've had solid performers that we've attracted and tried to recruit who have turned down the opportunity based on Jeff's reputation. So that is a concern for the organization. Do you agree that that's a concern?
Yeah, I guess I do agree with that. I guess, if we're gonna, I guess we can't be losing solid performers. Now, at the same time, I think that, we're definitely being a little bit oversensitive. I mean, people should be thrilled to work with Jeff. He's one of the best performers I have. And, if you don't want to work overtime, I guess you got to find a way to work with Jeff. But clearly, that's not going to happen, and that's why we're meeting today. So I guess, how do we make sure that these employees, stay the heck out of my office?
Generally, the goal is probably to just improve general welfare in Jeff's organization. I appreciate it from your perspective. We want to make sure that you're able to do what you want to do. But we also, but what the organization wants is happy employees, people wanting to come work there.
Right, because you got to care about people.
There's no quotations. I think the organization does care about people. But you're allowed your own opinions.
Yeah,
There's nothing.
I've worked here for 30 years. I got to say that their care about me hasn't been awfully high.
And I personally am sorry to hear that. And that's something that if you want to discuss at a later time, that's something that HR is literally here for. Literally, the goal of HR is to make sure that their employees are happy. So that's something we can discuss. As to what can be done, that's all that can be discussed. But you point out something that's interesting, which is Jeff has deliverables, and the organization doesn't want to completely eliminate Jeff's positives.
Right.
The organization just wants to fix the negative, and it would seem possible from an outside perspective that Jeff's behavior can be reined in, but he can still get his deliverables. And the person who's best equipped to kind of figure that out would be you, because you're Jeff's supervisor. You know the circumstances. You've been dealing with it. You're familiar with the situation as a whole. So you're probably in the best situation to kind of create a plan to deal with Jeff. So if you, having been personally impacted and recognizing that the business has been impacted, what are some ideas as to how you think you could rein in Jeff's behavior?
Okay. If I take a second to think about this?
Absolutely.
Really a lot.
I guess maybe the first thing, did anything jump to mind initially when these issues with Jeff came up?
Yeah. So, look, I'll level with you. I really like Jeff. I think he's a 9 out of 10 performer. But what's stopping him from being that 10 out of 10 is that he's not the most efficiency-minded person. He's the kind of guy that likes to, I guess, sprint a marathon, and that's not possible. You run out of gas.
Right.
So, and that's something that I've been trying to go over with Jeff just from a performance standpoint. But it was also one of those where I was kind of viewed it as a little bit miraculous that he made the deadlines he made, but you know, who was I to question the efficiency? But if we're actually losing talent, that means we're only going to get less efficient, right? We're gonna be
Right.
working with people that are potentially overwhelmed in the job and aren't as experienced as the previous guys that left who actually are competitors of all people.
Exactly. And that's the concern of the organization. Um, what ideas do you have to kind of fix that? Because you said he's sprinting a marathon isn't really viable. What ideas do you have, or did you have in regards to kind of slowing that down metaphorically?
Okay, so I'll show you what I mean. So like Jeff sends in emails like this, right? They're not clear at all.
Okay.
And I've been looking through and I look at his meeting notes and they look like they're written, quite honestly, by a middle schooler. So maybe
What do you
if I
mean
could
by middle schooler?
I mean like somebody who's sitting in a class only halfway paying attention and they only maybe cover like 2 or 3 things said in the meetings. So my thought is maybe we can get Jeff to communicate a little bit more effectively because I keep hearing that effective communication really improves time, and if we can make us better at time management, then maybe people will be happier working for Jeff.
Okay, so tell me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you think improving his communication skills maybe will reduce the unpredictability of Jeff and keep you sort of a better control over him?
Yeah, theoretically.
Theoretically.
I guess I'm willing to try anything at this point to make the department more efficient and realistically keep Jeff here.
Right. So with the idea of improving his communication, what do you think you can do to improve his communication skills?
Okay, so, and I think this isn't only isolated to Jeff. I think this is actually a department problem that we have. I don't really think we have a set way that we do itineraries of our meetings. We sort of just hand in this piece of paper, and some people are really good at typing up notes, others not so much. So maybe if we standardize how we handle our meeting processes, then everything in there becomes a little bit more clear and people actually understand what's due, when it's due, and what are the expectations for it.
And you had, in your mind, do you have an idea of the things that you'd want in this protocol or in the standard?
So I guess the big one that I really want to see is clarification on the projects and their due dates to the employees. So Jeff has a pretty good idea when projects are due. I communicate with him all the time. He knows, at the end of September, we're going to have a major supplier that's going to be bought out by another supplier, so we're trying to work out a contract with them. He knows when we have to get all that information submitted, but it doesn't seem to me that any of his subordinates are really clear with what's going on. And they get the work done, so it hasn't been much of an issue, I thought, but we're here, so clearly it is. But I think we got to make sure that the information I'm communicating to Jeff in these meetings is clearly in the itinerary that's sent out to his employees.
And so, are you willing to draw up this, what an itinerary, a model itinerary looks like for Jeff to pull off of?
Yeah, I'm absolutely willing to do that. This is something that's been on my mind for a little while, but I just haven't really gotten around to it because
And I appreciate that. Can I get your commitment that you do that?
Yeah, I can put it on my schedule, I guess. I got to level with you. I don't know at what point it's going to get done. I've been stressing about a lot of other things, and I got to answer to my higher ups.
Right.
So it's going to be a priority. I'm not sure at what point I'll get it to you, but I guess I can try. I mean, do you have any ideas as to how to make this more efficient? You seem to manage your time well.
Being the person who's closest to it, Wes, you're the one who's generated a great idea, I think, and I think it's one worth committing to. I will say the organization has identified this. So in terms of your concern about having to answer the people above you, the organization itself has identified Jeff as a concern overall. So it's one that should be a priority of yours.
Okay.
Considering that, what kind of timeline can you commit to in terms of generating that ideal itinerary, the one that people will follow, specifically, Jeff?
So I guess a little bit of that's going to depend on, so who in the organization has really talked about Jeff? And I'm not necessarily caring about like specific names, but like, is this like a company-wide problem of his, or is this just like a couple of the people in the department have pointed this out? I mean, like, help me understand, like, how bad has Jeff's behavior really impacted people, not his subordinates?
Well, subordinates have been impacted, and I don't think that should be discounted,
Oh,
because we discussed the impact earlier. That people are leaving, people are upset, people are leaving, and people are not coming in.
Okay.
So this is a threefold problem, and not to diminish how it's affecting you. And I'm sure there's other people who are silently suffering. As you mentioned, some people are tougher than others. Maybe they're suffering in silence. So considering that, I need to get a commitment from you about a pretty quick timeline in terms of getting this itinerary. Because you mentioned you're willing to do it. You know how to do it. You've thought about it. You've been with the company for years, so you could be able to whip this up pretty easily. Can you give me a specific, pretty short timeline to get that done?
Okay. So it's August right now. We got that project due in September, right? So how about within 2 weeks, and I know we've got like a good, I mean, these next 2 weeks are more work intensive, but we got a lot of meetings coming up after that. How about I get this itinerary done by next Monday? I'll have a meeting with Jeff this week to discuss a rough draft of it, and I'll meet with some of his subordinates as well to make sure that they're, I guess, making sure that the information is clarified to them too. And if everybody likes it, I'll present it to you and I'll see what you think, and then we can go forward from there. So by next Monday, I should have a final copy made.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a great way of attacking it, and I think that's a great timeline. By next Monday, and I get your commitment, then next Monday you'll present something to this office to review.
Yeah, it might have to be next Monday at 4:30, so it might be the last minute meeting of your day.
Okay.
But yeah, I will get it done. I mean, if I have to actually make the sacrifice and work the weekend, I will. I guess I make my subordinates do it all the time, so I guess might as well live a weekend in their shoes.
I think that's a very noble thing to do. So the commitment is next Monday before 4:30.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. And after that, I think we should schedule a time to discuss, what's coming of it, if you see any changes. Because I feel confident that you're going to produce a pretty worthwhile work product. So when you submit that to this organization or to this department, we'll review it, and I'm pretty sure we'll give it back to you with the okay if it's sufficient.
Yeah.
So how about do you want to say 3 weeks?
Yeah, 3 weeks is perfect for me. And would you be open to meeting maybe one or possibly two other times within those 3 weeks? And we can do it over lunch. I'll buy.
I appreciate your offer. I'd be happy to meet with you. The organization wants to see this issue solved,
and it's clear that you and I have very different perspectives on where Jeff is and what's going on, and clearly there's not a lot of overlap as to what the organizational culture is. But if there's a problem, it has to be solved.
Agreed, and I appreciate your caring about that. So, and it's not necessarily me not liking Jeff or not liking what Jeff does. This is something that the organization cares about. So,
because I don't want personal attacks against Jeff. That's not what I'm about.
No, and the organization's not interested in that either. So I would be happy to meet with you in that time. I know at minimum next week by Monday before 4:30 we're going to have that paperwork submitted, and then we'll review it and we'll get it back to you as soon as we can. And then in that time of execution, I think it's good to keep an eye on Jeff and see if things are changing, both from an organization perspective, but you personally. So I'd be happy to meet. Why don't we say a week after that? We'll have a set time, and if you want to set up something before or after that or move up that date, you can just call my office.
Yep, perfect for me. Please let my secretary know that all of this is going to be on my calendar.
Absolutely.
And I'll make sure that she concedes. She's been great. Worked with her for 25 years. Perfect.
Yeah, I think I've heard good things about her because I had to speak with her in order to set this up.
She's the best.
Do you have any other questions? Because I think we've done a really good job. We talked about Jeff's circumstances. I appreciate your perspective on it. Sounds like we have a very good plan, a good timeline. and even the scheduling after that. Is there any other questions that you have?
Yeah, I think we've actually pretty much covered everything. So if I have any other questions, I'll be sure to shoot you an email. Just be on the lookout for it.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Wes. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
There you go. Hope you enjoyed it. Be gentle in your grading.